Hello, welcome wherever you are around the world to the 3ZZZ World Cup show. My name is Gabriel D'Angelo. It is wonderful to have your company. And speaking of wonderful company, sitting next to me we have from the Irish Broadcasting Group, DeArne Leonard. DeArne, how are you?
Fantastic, Gabe. Looking forward to the last two games, World Cup. Bring it on.
Excellent, that's a good attitude to have. And sitting next to DeArne from the German Broadcasting Group, Bernd Merkel. How are you, Bernd?
I'm very well, thanks, Gabriel. Hi, DeArne.
That's good. So the last time we spoke, we were talking about the quarterfinals. Well, the quarterfinals are a long time ago now, and then we moved on to the semifinals where Argentina defeated Croatia 3-0, France defeated Morocco 2-0. So now we're into the important stage of the World Cup. We've got the third place playoff, which is Sunday at 2 a.m, the 18th of December, Australian Eastern Standard Time, Croatia versus Morocco. And of course, the big one, the final at Monday, the 19th of December, 2 a.m, Australian Eastern Standard Time, Argentina versus France. Wow, it's going to be a good one. I don't know about you, but well, Argentina versus France is going to be the makings of a classic, I think, I hope. So what do you guys think?
Depends on the referees because
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm going to go straight for it, straight for the
Straight to
jugular.
the jugular.
That penalty, Argentina, Croatia, what was that about? A keeper is allowed to be where he was. He can make himself big. He was going for the ball. Alvarez has come straight in, smacked into his leg and put him on the ground. Yet there's a penalty, a yellow card and a subsequent yellow card for another player in Croatia because they were trying to have a discussion. So I'm assuming it's dissent. However, that didn't actually play out for the rest of the game with any of the Argentinian dissents. There was no yellows issued for them throughout the game. My concern is that Argentina seem to be a protected species in this World Cup for whatever reason. Take nothing from their skills, but what is going on when penalties like that are being given out and breaking Croatia early in the game?
Yeah. Send your complaints to DeArne Leonard at no. But you do make a point. Yes.
I mean, the protected species, if you look at that situation in the quarterfinal against Netherlands, where I can't remember which Argentina player, kicked the ball into the Dutch bench,
Yes.
and then Virgil van Dijk came and really pushed him over. So that should have been a yellow card for the Argentina player, but also red for Van Dijk, with all respect. Yes. So I don't think that it's only Argentina that is protected here. And in general, about that penalty, I think there were other penalties given where I thought that was clearly not one. And if I look back at that game, yes, of course, it was the first goal, but even then, Croatia really didn't deliver much anymore afterwards. As against Brazil, Brazil was dominating that game as well, and then yes, Croatia came back. So in the end, I'm just excited to have two top nations in the final because let's be honest. As great as it is, you have Morocco there. What a wonderful story. But in the end, when you're talking about a World Cup, you want to know which is the best team in the world. And to have two of those nations up there, I think is very exciting, with Mbappe and with Messi.
Yeah, you're right. And you've got the players like, for example, with France, you've got Mbappe, you've got Varane, you've got Dembele, you've got Griezmann, who is just... He is in just sensational form right now. Griezmann is he's probably better now than he was 4 years ago. And he's only 31 years old. So he probably has another World Cup where he can get, possibly three. Yeah, a hat-trick maybe, we don't know. Let's not, But you also got Giroud, who's in extremely good touch too. There are some players, and also Lloris in goals, but the French team are just scarily good at the moment. And you were saying off air, Bernd, and you were 100% right, that some of the players that missed out on playing in this World Cup are so good that if they were put in, it would just be even more, just highlight how good they are.
Maybe the theory, which nobody can ever prove, is maybe it was French luck that some of the players got injured. No doubt about their quality, like a Pogba, like a Benzema, But we always know around the French team there's something a bit happening outside the football. And if you have strong characters like Pogba, Benzema in there, and looking back, it couldn't have been better, right? So they are in the final. And I would at least predict if they lose the final, it's not because Benzema and Pogba are missing. The quality is there. So, and it's just incredible, as you said, the injured players that are not there, they could easily have a second team making into the semi-final.
Just the reserve team alone of France, it's scarily good. But let's not just continually go on about France, because there's another team in the final, of course, is Argentina. And Argentina, they're a phenomenal team as well. They've been playing really, really, almost, I don't want to say it, but it's almost like now more than ever, they're just sort of more united. They seem more like a solid group. It sort of reminds me a little bit of when they were in 2014, when they actually made it to the final, where they lost to Germany. But this time around, things could change. But the way that Argentina have been playing, that they're not as Messi-centric as they were in the last couple of years. That there are a lot of other key elements, a lot of really good players. And, the goalkeeper Martinez, who's been really, really good for Argentina. Of course, you've got De Paul, Alvarez, and of course the old hands like Di Maria, who have also been really, really good. So Argentina, I mean, they've got a very good shot at winning this as well.
Do you know what's going to be interesting, Gabe? In the last two games, both Argentina and France had less possession of the ball, yet they came out on top. They were the stronger side. So Argentina only had 39% of the ball against Croatia, and France had 38% against Morocco. And they are in two very diverse playing styles at the moment. As I said before, Argentina will walk you up and then they explode in speed, but France have speed from the get-go.
Yes, that is very true.
What's going to happen?
No, that is extremely true.
Yeah. And that was coming back briefly to France in terms of the tactics. They can't play like that as they played against Morocco, against Argentina, because Messi's going to destroy them. But about Argentina, I mean, what I really love with that team is how they handle everything around Messi, because it's all about Messi.
Yeah.
But if you compare it, for example, to Portugal and Ronaldo, it's awful. It's terrible what's happening there. You can think about Ronaldo as a person, what you want, but as a player, no doubt he was outstanding. And now the discussions that you have, his sister getting involved, and then the team needs to justify, no, we were not against Ronaldo in the team, And Argentina accepted the role of Messi, now a little bit older, but being the superstar. But he also, is now carrying that burden, and so fantastically. So that's where I, in addition, pay all my respect to him, because everybody's looking at him and the way he's still performing. And another thing that is interesting, is it maybe also related to that the World Cup actually is now at this time of the year? Because normally when you have it at the end of the season, players might get a bit more tired.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm really excited about that final.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was part of the problem, that so many players were injured, because, there wasn't that long break where players could have time off and all that. I mean, and also, you're right what you're saying about Messi, but it almost seems like Messi is much more relaxed into this one, even though obviously all of Argentina, and there are heaps of fans worldwide, not just of Argentina, but of Lionel Messi as a player. Everybody wants him to win and all the pressure is on him. But he just seems to be a little bit more, I don't know, just seems to be a different level than what he was in the past. It's sort of like, it's almost like he knows this is his last chance, and he's not like, I have to win this, I've got to do it. It's almost like he's enjoying it. I don't know, it just comes across with that aura.
I agree. I think he's enjoying this World Cup, and I think that's the secret to the difference to the success, because if he was playing for, as we say in Australian, sheep stations, he would be far too serious, and they may not have even made it this far. They could have succumbed to Croatia in the last round if they were getting a bit too serious about Messi's chances.
Yeah, that could have probably happened with Ronaldo, that sort of pressure of, I must win.
And I also feel he's a bit more outspoken now. If you saw his reaction in the Netherlands game, against Van Gaal, but also against the whole team. And then there was that interview. I mean, you understand the Spanish better than I do, but where he made this comment about Wout Weghorst from the Netherlands. I think in English was,
what are you looking at, stupid?
Yeah, why are you looking at that like that?
No, I'm just saying to you. What Messi was saying. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Thanks for that, Carol. But so that was not a Messi of, let's say, 4 or 8 years ago, right? Yeah. So, and that's why it's going to be, I can't just repeating myself, very exciting.
It is going to be exciting. We won't get predictions just yet. We'll save that for later in the program. But first, we have to go to a break. On the other side of the break, we have George Grosios, who's a Socceroos fan. But first, our friend Brian Yap has some things he'll like to say.
Oh, hello again. How good is the World Cup? And how good is coffee? How good is staying up late to watch the World Cup while drinking coffee? Thanks to Albert Street Cafe for having the best coffee in Melbourne. I was able to stay up late at night and watch the whole thing. Didn't miss a single minute of the action. If you're going to watch the best sporting event, you may as well drink the best coffee. And Albert Street Cafe is the best. They have the best coffee and sandwiches anywhere in Melbourne. Come, see for yourself. Albert Street Cafe, 306 Albert Street, Brunswick.
With us to talk about the Socceroos performance in Qatar, we have a fan of the Socceroos, George Grosios. Welcome to the program.
Hello everybody, good to see you.
So what do you think about the Socceroos? Obviously they did extremely well, but as a fan who's been there, done that, seen the good, seen the bad, what did you think?
Couldn't be prouder of the whole squad. Graham Arnold has made his critics eat humble pie. I know after that disastrous match against Japan during the qualifying phase, they were calling for his sacking, but common sense and patience prevailed. He chose a very good squad and they performed on the biggest stage. No disgrace losing to France and no disgrace losing to Argentina. They're the two teams that have made the final. They were undone by Mbappe and Lionel Messi, arguably two of the best players going around at the moment.
What do you think, George, in terms of how will the future look like? Because, I mean, I agree with you that they did extremely well, but I think we can't close our eyes looking at what happened over the last years. And the qualification was really very, very rocky. Yes, we had to deal with, Corona, COVID, playing in Qatar and all of that. But still, the performances in some games were not that promising. So could you then really say, like, okay, we played an outstanding World Cup and now everything is bright and shiny?
Oh, look, we can't paper over some of the cracks. Youth development is still an issue in this country and we need to keep blooding young players. Graham Arnold, when he chose the squad, surprised many by dropping some experienced players and gave an opportunity to the likes of Harry Souttar again, who came back from that serious knee injury. So he's going to be the bedrock of the Socceroos defence for many years to come. Young players like Devlin actually showed a lot of promise. And we still have some other up-and-coming players as well that hopefully in the next 4-year cycle will also come to prominence. So there is a core element of young talent that, hopefully Daniel Arzani gets over his injuries. Yeah. So he's another player for the future that gets an opportunity. Marco Tilio, another kid that was called up very late. So we can pinpoint a number of young players to regenerate the team. But you're right, there are still some cracks there. It's no accident that we struggled during that campaign. Do we blame the travel? Do we blame the fact that COVID impacted on the team and they spent more games away playing to qualify rather than having the comforts of home? So we do have to be fair and take into consideration the impacts of COVID. So hopefully the next 4-year cycle, Graham Arnold, if he chooses to stick around, there are talks about him taking some lucrative offers from other countries and perhaps some club teams in America. But if he sticks around, he at least has a very good core unit. It was a shame that we lost Martin Boyle for the campaign as well. So there is still a lot of promising signs, but you're right, they need to heed the lessons from those games where we just didn't look like we were going to qualify.
Yeah, and to be fair, if you look at the group that Australia was in the qualifiers, third behind Saudi Arabia and Japan, we saw what they were capable of at this World Cup, right? So that's to us, the Socceroos credit as well, that those two teams performed very well as well.
We've talked a lot about the fact that the current squad doesn't seem to have a lot of international, not caps for the Australian side, but international experience. The prior games we had people in the EPL, we had them in all sorts of leagues around the world. This one we've come in and there's been maybe a couple of players that are over in the Scottish League and other places, our stalwarts that made it back in the squad. We largely had homegrown players and I kept making the joke that it seemed like a New South Wales team, state team, with some extras add on. How do you see this next 4-year cycle going if we don't get those players into international competitions? It's not just about the international blooding, it's about how is their performance. Do you really think the A-League only has the talent for us to go and take out at the next World Cup in 4 years?
Well, look, it was great that A-League players got an opportunity I'm talking about McLaren, of course, who's a renowned
Lecky.
striker. He's had overseas, and you're referring to overseas club experience, DeArne. So as long as the A-League can keep producing young players, we know that the A-League doesn't have the money to keep young talent in Australia. But if they're going to leave for bigger clubs and they prosper overseas, it will only enhance the Socceroos. I know many years ago, of course, we had that golden generation of Viduka, Kuehl, Kale playing for the Liverpools, the Evertons, and et cetera, Whether we go back to those days, DeArne, it just means that all clubs in Australia, and the A-League in particular, just need to revise the way they recruit and develop talent. As long as there is a pathway for our kids, our young players, whether it's at A-League or overseas, it will only benefit the Socceroos in the long term. But the A-League has been a good nursery over the years, and we have players, as you touched on before, in Scotland, guys like Keanu Backus, who was another young player that really impressed me in this World Cup campaign. So as long as we can keep producing those sorts of those players, it won't really matter whether they're playing for A-League clubs or if they get the big lucrative offers overseas. Obviously, it's great if they do go overseas, because it promotes Australian football, and it's a great thing for Australian soccer to be able to say, yep, our players are graduating from A-League ranks, going overseas.
So I suppose the difference, if you look at, EPL, Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A, there's so many countries close together that you see the player interchange across the different things. We're not attracting that sort of talent into the A-League. That's my concern. If they were coming here to play and lift the standard and give that depth of experience, I'd feel a bit more confident. But we are literally at the bottom end of the world compared to all other leagues. And it's always been our problem, the depth of other teams to play or have access to. I honestly think we need to get people back up to the other levels of experience. Go to Serie A, go to anywhere, even the Mexican league, which Gabe loves.
Yeah, well, hey, it's a good league. Don't
We
knock it.
are punching above our weight. There's no doubt about it. That's why it is important, as you say, to get players come to the A-League and help develop. Unfortunately, the A-League has some things going against it. Salary caps.
Yeah.
Clubs don't have the... I know the A-League has set aside money for your
a marquee fund.
Your marquee players, but unfortunately we're getting players at the end of their careers. I think of Alessandro Del Piero. Guys, you would have remember Romario. I mean, we do get name players, but unfortunately we're getting them on their last legs. Now, let's not fool ourselves. We're not going to get renowned overseas players at the peak because there's just no money in the competition.
Yeah. In 2006, when Australia had qualified and there was that sort of boom in participation rates and just general interest when it comes to just football in general, there seemed to be this sort of optimism like, okay, football has finally arrived, the A-League is starting to develop, and we thought, okay, in the next maybe 10 years there's going to be this, there's going to be that, there's all these sorts of things, and it just stagnated, like the handbrakes were just completely pulled. In terms of now, after all this positivity of the Socceroos performance, are you optimistic about the future of not just the A-League, but just football in Australia in general?
Well, there's always that feel-good factor after Australia does well in World Cups. It happened with that golden generation where we beat Japan and there was a lot of goodwill.
Yeah.
Even the mainstream media, for a change, had soccer on the back pages, and it's happened again. But guess what? Australian soccer seems to find a way to shoot itself in the foot.
Yeah.
And I don't want to harp on the A-League too much, but we've just seen in recent times the decision to award Sydney all finals for the next 3 years. Yeah. And we're having fans across the competition stage walkouts. So just when Australia was, the Socceroos team was generating all of this positivity, and of course we have the Matildas around the corner who are an absolutely magnificent team, great ambassadors for the sport, and I love what they're doing and how they go about it. Yet when it comes to the men's and just the sport in general, we always seem to score, and pardon the pun, own goals.
I think the next 6 months will be very crucial because of what's happening with the A-League just in general with spectators, you know, regardless of what you just said with the finals being now in Sydney. Then we have, as you said, the Matildas, the World Cup. But let's not forget the Asian Cup next year as well, which is coming up right before the Women's World Cup, again in Qatar. But I think Australia then has now a bit of pressure. I don't know if just getting to the quarterfinal, as they did last time, will be enough to keep the momentum. Yeah. I think, with all respect and humbleness, they need to go to the semi-final at least.
Yeah, I agree.
And a lot of Asian countries are investing heavily in football, and they are getting better. And there's a lot of talk about the Southeast Asian countries in particular, like Vietnam. They're starting to get better. They're starting to improve, and it's a long process. But well, anyway, we can talk about this as well. But before you go, can you please show us your shirt?
I've gone to my cupboard, dusted off the mothballs, and a soccer jersey from the time when Mark Bosnich and Aurelio Vidmar were struggling their stuff for the Socceroos. So I'm a proud Socceroos fan, and like all of us, we just want to see Australian soccer prosper, and the Socceroos and the Matildas win a World Cup.
Yeah, and who's your tip for to win the World Cup?
Argentina. I think it'll be just a great romantic story for Lionel Messi to finally win a World Cup and follow in the footsteps of the great Diego Maradona.
Yeah, and well, for those who don't know George, he commentates with DeArne, Bernd and myself when we do the NPL men's and women's games at South Melbourne. Look forward to working with you again next year.
And I thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the show.
No problem. You just came from the beach, obviously, so
yes,
thank you very much.
The white. And you're doing a lovely job with this show.
Well, thank you very much, George. And well, good luck to the Socceroos in the future, whether it be next year in the next World Cup. But thank you very much, George. We have plenty more to talk about after the break, but first we have our friend Brian Yap.
Belmont, Bentley East, Brunswick. Oh, don't mind me. I'm just looking at the map where Bowens are located. Croydon, Dandenong, Epping. Well, I'm glad that there are so many Bowens around Melbourne because they provide the best timber and hardware in Australia. Hallam, Hastings, Laverton North. Bowens have been around for 128 years helping Aussies with their projects. Whereabouts? Elton, Mount Evelyn, North Melbourne, Phillip Island. Even penguins use Bowens because they're that great. Wow. Now, where else? Shepparton, Port Melbourne, Rowville. Well, of course they do. Well, yeah, because, well, they're Bowens. They are the builder's choice. Oh, where else? Taylor's Lakes, Warragul, Pakenham.
After an incredibly positive performance from the Socceroos at this year's World Cup, and with the Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand next year, a lot of positive things is happening with football in this country and in the region of Australia, well, Oceania and Asia in general. But what is the future of football after this World Cup? Where do we go from here? What do you guys think?
Ladies first.
Thank you. So I think we have a couple of challenges across both the men's and the women's teams. We're seeing a trend of this, they're calling it the labour and the management harmony of teams on the international stage, right? So we're talking about the labour being the players and then the owners, the management. We saw a lot of, I'll call it friction in the women's team, the last World Cup that we had, with that unbelievable decision to change the harmonious coaching relationship that was happening for the Matildas.
With Alan Stajic.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I think that the other problem that we're facing starts getting into things like revenue. So we've had some amazing guests come through here from grassroots soccer in Melbourne. The problem is they get to the end of what they're doing in their amazing usefulness and giving people the football skills, building them up. There's no feeder system. Like you look at the academies overseas, you've got Ajax, you've got Bayern, you've got, in fact, there's even an African one that is called the Good Something. I'll get it in a second. And they're actually feeding African players into the European leagues at a very high standard. We get to the end of some of our grassroots organisations and it just stops dead.
Yeah.
Again, not enough feeder systems into different leagues. We've got one, starting with an A for the men's and the women's. There's nothing beyond. And we are so geographically diverse and far from the rest of the world, I think we've got a problem.
But you're right. I mean,
A big problem.
But you're right. There does seem to be this sort of lack of connection between the grassroots and, shall we say, the top tier, if you like to call it like that, for want of a better word. There didn't seem to be like that, you know, generations ago. Like, football wasn't easy. It wasn't this middle class game which is slowly starting to become what it's like now, which I don't like. Where it's becoming more and more expensive just to play. That's and also a massive problem with this country, with football in this country. But long ago, there seemed to be this greater connection where if you're good enough and you play at the old National Soccer League, the jump to Europe, whether it be in Belgium or in France or in Holland, and then to England and Scotland, if you're good enough, was much more open. Like, now it doesn't seem that way. And it also sort of seems like we have a lot of these amazing young players. They go overseas, they play a year or a little bit, they'll get injured or whatever, and they come back straight to Australia. I mean, there's a lot of variables and all that, but I don't know. What do you think, Bernd?
Well, I think, as DeArne said, there are probably opportunities but also challenges on different levels. The big opportunity that we have now is with the Socceroos gaining that momentum. When you see how many people rocked up, you know, at Fed Square, I think in Sydney it was Darling Harbour, public viewing, that's really big. And to use this opportunity, because the next World Cup will be in Australian winter again, right? So there won't be that much public viewing. And so to take that momentum, to look at what the Socceroos are going to do at the Asian Cup, as I said before. So that's definitely the opportunity. The challenge that I see is also when it comes really to talent scouting, because I think there is enough young players out there somewhere that have really a good talent, a good skill, because Australia is literally big enough to have good players in the mid and long term to get a decent national team. Yeah. But you need a certain system that scouts these young players, you know, and that goes on with what are the trainings, how do the coaches look like? You said academies, you know, is something that you would need. Yeah. So from that end, that's also a perspective. And the third one, we spoke about that before offline as well, is how do the media talk about, you know, soccer? And there is, with all respect, we love our sports here, you know, there's the Australian Open, there is the footy AFL, but soccer in that way is really underrepresented.
We understand that the AFL are entitled to protect themselves and all that, but there does seem to be a little bit more to it. Yeah, sorry, go, Boone.
Yeah, but I also don't see the AFL at the moment as the biggest threat for soccer in Australia, to be honest. As I said, when it comes to scouting, you know, you apparently, even with what we just discussed from an AFL perspective, people were interested in the Socceroos playing at this World Cup. So in my opinion, there's a third big chance after that golden generation in 2006. I guess that momentum got a little bit lost. Then you had the Asian Cup win in 2015. You know, after that also I felt there was kind of stagnation or even maybe a step back. Yeah. So now you have a chance, and it starts at the grassroots, but also what's happening at the A-League. We already had a decision that I think not a lot of people would, or let's say a majority of people don't support. So this is the stuff that independent of the AFL is happening, and we need to get this right, which I would see as the homework. And then you can look at, okay, what's happening with other sports as well. Yeah. But even within the whole structure of football, there's a lot of mismatch.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. So, but this is the thing. There are so many elements to it. So yes, we have the outsider elements of the football sphere, so to speak, and of course internally we're not doing great either. How many stories have we heard of really, really good players who were considered not good enough to play in the A-League, but they're good enough to play in clubs in Europe? Yeah. How many times has that happened? You know, we can't really go into absolute depth as to why and the hows and all that, but also when we were speaking to Peter Filopoulos years ago, a lovely guy, great football fan, very passionate about the game. But we did say, look, football is becoming more expensive. And to sort of paraphrase, it was like, well, they're getting, you know, what they pay for. It's money well spent or something along those lines. And it's like, well, really? Are they? I mean, is the money that a lot of these kids that are spending really money well spent? Are they getting a lot out of it? This is what's part of the problem. Anybody with a bag of balls and some cones can consider themselves a coach or someone that has an academy or something like that. But also in terms of the participation rates and the disparity between football and other sports. I mean, when it comes to football, in Australia, football is number one in terms of participation rates. There are more people that play football than AFL, rugby league and rugby union combined. But despite that, government funding, so this is in Victoria, $15 million is spent on football, $285 million on AFL and $32 million on hockey, even though football has far greater participants than either of those sports. I mean, hockey is an international sport in its own way as well. There's all this sort of disparaging, I don't want to say the terms, but it's sort of like injustice in a way, in the terms of funding to football, considering it has the most number of participants in comparison to the other sports.
And as I said before, I think the next 7 to 8 months are very, very crucial for the future of soccer and football in Australia, with the Asian Cup for the Socceroos, with the Women's World Cup, and also because one thing is what the A-League is organizing, and the other thing is how many spectators will we get now over the next months. And again, the decision that has been made with getting all the finals to Sydney, probably not the best one. So we will see how that develops and what the people, what their conclusion from that one is. So therefore, probably need to sit down again in 8 months after the World Cup and see what has happened. And hopefully, I mean, I'm optimistic, but yeah, there are a lot of challenges, as we said. So, but we love this game.
Hopefully things will get better. Hopefully Channel 7's coverage of the Women's World Cup will be respectful and good. If not, we're available, 3ZZZ. we're here, we can do it, I'm sure. But we can talk about this at length all day. But we have to move on. Brian Yap, please tell us something.
Hey guys, do you know what winshare means? Well, it's 2 words. Win in English and share is Hindi for lion. Winshare also means quality. It also means value. And it also means community. It also means ethically made sporting goods at the best prices. Remember, when you win with Winshare, you also win by buying Australian-made quality sporting gear. Whether it's football, cricket, volleyball, basketball, you name it, Winshare can help you. And remember, buy in bulk and save money. Go to www.winsharesports.com.au or email info@winshare.com.au and win with Winshare.
Okay, before we talk about the final between Argentina and France, there are a lot of people that we'd like to thank for this program, because after all, this is our final show. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Winshare Sports, Albert Street Cafe and Bowen's Timber. Thank you so very, very much. We'd like to thank from 3ZZZ our station manager, John King, for allowing us to do this program. Also our sponsorship manager, Bill Pascalis, for his support too. We'd like to thank, of course, the wonderful people here at Studio M4 and Sajiv, who's done a lot of hard work and for basically putting up with our shenanigans during filming. We'd like to thank the CBF for funding this program. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank all of our guests, Floyd Cardoso, Margaret Perrell, good luck to you, Margaret, Nick Hatzoglu, Miguel Hill, Simon Reynolds, Luis Gonzalez, Elsa Mangan, Skip Fulton, and George Grosios. Thank you so very much for coming on the program and sharing your passions, because we do say, we're the world radio station and we're the world game, and we love the world game. So thank you so much for being on the program, and yes, we've enjoyed it so very, very, very much. I also like to thank the 2 people sitting next to me, DeArne Leonard, as always, so very, very positive, so very, very good, so very, very professional, always, so delightful to work with as per usual.
Not bad for a singing shamrock, right?
Yeah, that's right. And Bernd, thank you so very much, as per usual, always so thoroughly professional, always keen to help out wherever you can. So thank you very much, Bernd, thank you very much, DeArne, and look forward to working with you both for when we do the broadcasting of the NPL men's and women's games with the mighty South Melbourne Football Club. To actually listen to all those games, just go onto our website www.3zzz.com.au, and we have a page dedicated to all things football there. Bernd, DeArne, so Monday, 19th of December at 2 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, Argentina versus France. Who's going to win?
Well, very difficult question. Honestly, in that game, I don't know. I see them both on the same level. As we said before, Argentina did a great job how they built their team around Messi in terms of, I think Portugal with Ronaldo is the complete opposite. So they have their star player, but the team is willing to deliver towards him. And then how he carried the team through this whole World Cup so far is amazing. So from that end, he definitely deserves the title. The whole team deserves the title. On the other end, how France coped with all their injuries and Didier Deschamps doing a great job, the second World Cup in a row now. So I feel still like that France has maybe that little tick in advance. So in terms of advantage, but it's going to be very close. But I say France is going to win. Maybe after extra time, maybe after penalty shootout.
Is Messi injured?
Don't know. Don't think so.
Are you kidding? Hamstring in the last game, and he didn't appear at training. He has not been out on the pitch. PR says he's okay, but it's dicey at the moment. And I only say that. You said who's going to win, right? And
yeah.
I mean, I think with both
You are the
Mbappe
kiss of
and
death.
Messi, well, I'm not going to say anything then. Between Mbappe and Messi, they're both sitting on 5 goals each in this particular competition. They're both stars in their own right. And as Bernd said, they've built a wonderful unit around Messi. But what happens if he's actually injured? Can Argentina step up? I hope that he's not. I want to see him on the pitch for what is probably arguably his last World Cup game with Argentina.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in a word, look.
What do you think?
I hope that the best team wins. Seriously, I hope the best team wins. I hope that the team that actually deserves it wins it. I don't want it to go to extra time. I don't want to go to penalties. I just hope that whoever wins the game wins it fairly within the 90 minutes. Look, both teams are just so good. I mean, that's why they're there in the final. You can't be bad and make it to the World Cup final. I just hope whoever deserves to win it wins it. And I hope it's going to be a good game.
But is it going to be as exciting and matched in pace, or is it going to be one team dominating because they are playing very different soccer out on that pitch?
Yeah, well, whoever dominates and wins, okay, good. That's all I can say. But one word, you say France?
Yes.
And you say...
My mum says France. I have to go with mum.
Okay, fair enough. But we'll have to leave it there. And one last thank you to you, the viewers. Thank you, everybody, for watching this program, whether it's on YouTube or on M4 Live. Thank you so very, very much for taking time out of your schedule to watch our program. And thank you for the support from everybody at 3ZZZ and from M4. Thank you very much for watching us. And we hope that you enjoyed it. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the football. See you next time. Bye for now.